navigate to, there's a piece of documentation that's critical. It's very helpful for today. I wouldn't say it's critical. If you're in your Data Cookbook now, go to Help. It's an appendix in the user guide. Go to Help, download this user guide here, and at the very end, there is an appendix called Appendix A. I'm displaying it now on screen. And there is a chart. It's like a 4-page chart, and it's called Where Does the Data Cookbook Find My Search Terms? And that's, what page am I on here with this? Page 158, very close to the end. There is, that chart is spread across multiple pages. So we're going to talk about information from a little bit different perspective from this chart, but this is the most concise summary of search documentation that we offer you. And you might find it helpful to have it at your fingertips. Of course, there's other explanations about search in other places in the guide, in the text area. But I wanted to point out this chart to you at the beginning. All right, rest of the agenda. We're going to take a look at, there are 4 places to search. We're going to take a look at each of those. We're going to look at quickly at search logs. In case you didn't know it, you do have search logs, user search logs. Then I just created this section called Tricky Stuff. So again, while search is pretty straightforward, there's some nuances to it that can explain why you get certain results. And then we will wrap up, as Jim said, our format, we will wrap up with questions at the end. So, documentation. I already paused and pointed that out to you, gave you some time to get that. Also, in the user guide, page 40 is where the text explanation of search begins. You might want to read that. It's helpful to have that as a resource as well. It's all in the user guide. There's nothing about search in the admin guide. That is because the search feature is available to all users. It is not an admin thing. So all of its information is in the user guide. Okay. So, and there's a snapshot of what that chart looks like. All right, so what are the 4 places to search? We're going to look at each one individually. This is a screenshot of your Home tab. If you have your Data Cookbook open, I bet many of you do, and your dual monitors, click on Home and you will see a blue search box and it's labeled Search the Data Cookbook. I tend to call this the home search. That's how I usually reference it. It's not labeled that per se. It indexes definitions and specifications. And if you're an enterprise client, it will index data systems. Material has to be approved. That's relevant to the definitions and specifications. They must be approved in order to show up in the results for this. That's a big point of confusion is your items have to be approved to show up in these results. It's notable also that quality objects, the rules, the reference lists are not indexed here. So you will get only definitions, specifications, and data system names. And you have to be approved. Next, search box is related. On the Home tab, if you open up the Home tab and you click on the entry called Find Data, you are presented with this picture, and this search box looks a lot like the regular Home one, and in fact, the boxes are identical, and the search mechanics underneath it are identical. Same rules apply. Approved definitions and specifications only, and data systems if you're an enterprise client. So same thing going on in both those boxes. I point them out, they're labeled differently, right? This one kind of looks like you would call it the Find Data box, and the other one, people just tend to call it the Home search. So that for your users, that can be a little confusing that these are indeed identical in how they operate. Third search is, this is a graphic that you will recognize. It is located in the upper right-hand corner of your data cookbook on every single page. A shorthand way of describing which one this is the quick definition lookup. You just take that phrase out of the prompt search box and just call it the quick definition lookup. This searches only definitions of all states, drafting, in progress, approved, and it includes community definitions. They list below your own. Client definitions list first in the results set, and then community definitions that meet your search terms will list at the bottom. So definitions only, and it's available on every single page. Fourth, we call this, at iData, we call this the browse search. So this is a snippet from the definitions browse page. Basically, the browse page is the home page for each of your objects. So the spec browse page, the quality rules browse page, the reference data list browse page, all have this search in the right-hand corner below this navigation bar. So that's communicating that this is searching only the objects on whose page you are on. So that would only search definitions. This searches only your definitions. Community is not available here. And it searches every single definition, approved and in progress. So you could, so I count this as 4 searches, right? The 4 different types, the home tab, the find data, the quick definition lookup, and then the browse search. You could argue that there's actually 1, 2, 3, 4. There's actually 4 of these types of searches, but they all operate the same, just on the different object in question. So those are the 4 search areas. I'm going to move this slide deck aside, and let's take a look at Data Cookbook, and let's start at the Home tab. So there we are. This is what I call the Home search, and let's search for applicant aid. And that's going to give me results in all three areas: definitions, specs, and data systems. Highlights my terms. I'm actually going to turn off admin. I think it's a little cleaner to view this without the admin permission level. So there's the 3 display panels, and you can see there's no room there for quality. That is on our roadmap to include quality objects in this kind of a mega search, if you will. But at this point in time, it is only searching these 3 things. And the term may not be visible, and it may not be highlighted if it's in a phrase situation. You may not be able to see from this page why the item is displaying. That term could be just included in a field that is not displaying on this particular page. Clicking on Refine Search for any of these, that will take you to the Browse search for that object. So it'll take you to, in that case, the definition search results. It populates your term there and takes you to that, moves you over into that search type. Next up, if I demo what happens if I click on Find Data. Right, so this is the second search type, and as I said earlier, it is identical to what you have if you just clicked at the home page. But because of this Find Data header here, it is a little bit of a confusion point to some end users at times because the labeling is different. But if I type in applicant aid, I will get the same results. If there is no results for that particular item, in this case we'll get definitions in a data system, but no specifications found, you'll have a result that looks like that. So moving on to the third type, let's see what applicant aid looks like in this quick definition lookup. So here we have our two that are in our account. So I call these sometimes the local account, and then there's a slew of things in the community, and those list in a slightly different color display below the local. You can toggle that community off and on. So if you personally don't want to see it, you can toggle that off and just see your own. Last search, let's go to definitions and do a browse search and search for applicant aid. And there we have our two definitions for applicant aid. So in this case, we have the same number, right? When I searched applicant aid under home or find data, we also got two results. I searched it here, I also got two results. That's because I have two approved versions. So this is version 2 approved. Well, I still have version 1 approved. And so that version 1 approved is triggering that count and giving me a count of 2 over in the home search. Whereas here it looks like, well, I've got 1 in progress and I've got 1 approved. Why didn't I just get 1 in the other 2 styles? And it's because it does index, your previous versions are indexed in the search, in those 2 particular search engines. It can also be a point of trickiness, as you will retrieve a definition and you won't find your keyword. You know, if you navigate into your, if you went to the pending version and you navigated to it, you couldn't find your keyword anywhere. A place to look is it may be appearing in the version 1 that's approved. So if you don't see your term related here, dig back into previous versions by clicking on the version number in the history, and then you can go back and see if it's there. So that's kind of a high-level overview of each of the 4 search areas. Let me put the slide deck back up, and I think next is search logs. Yeah, and if you are logged in, why don't you take a look at your own. My search logs tend to be pretty boring because of the nature of training. Just the way I use my data cookbook doesn't, it's wiped out every day. I get so there's not much of a history. There's a bit of a history today because I've been working in it in preparation for our session today, but I would expect a regular client to have quite a few more, 4 times the amount of this, if not more. And it's a rolling 30 days. Specifications also has a search log. You can see much less activity there for me. Quality rules has a search log as well, and I will point out that the only thing included in that is your quality rules. Your reference data lists are not included in your quality search logs. I think the point of looking at your logs is one of, I think if a data steward or the overall Data Cookbook content manager should be perusing those logs on a regular basis. You're looking to see what language are people using and what are they looking for. And if they're getting 0 you don't see here what is being searched that got 0 hits, but if people have taken the time to search for it, you want to make an effort to see that there is content there. It's a fairly reasonable term, obviously. It's a good indicator in terms of the direction you might want to take, the way you prioritize what content you add in your definitions, specifications, and rules areas, right? If they're searching on it, provide content in that area. Okay, so it's more about those logs are of value for content management. All right, next up, I got 2 slides here of what I call tricky stuff, and you will get a copy of these slides at the end of this session, so you don't have to get all that quite all that detail down as we go through these. But I want to show you. I want to bring to life. Let me go back to the guide, right? So the guide is telling you that over on the far right-hand side, these are the search of the 4 types of search. This is touching on 3 of them. So when you search from the definition browse page, the quick definition upper right-hand corner lookup, or the home page, and you put in a word for definition, the results will be looking in quite a few fields. So it's looking in versions, it's looking in tags, it's looking in, if you are an enterprise client, it's going to look at your quality attributes, including the valid value codes. It's going to look at version states, which is the names of your workflow stages. And it's going to start to pick up related material. So if there's relationships between, there's so much relationships in Data Cookbook, right? You can relate most objects to other objects. So there's a hierarchy there of relationship, and the search will sometimes act on that. So it's all laid out in this chart by object here over on the left, but I wanted to pull out through these, what I'm calling these tricky things. I want to bring that to life with some examples. So let's take a look at what some of those look like. Let's look at the reciprocity between specifications and collections. So to review, you can group 1 or more specifications into a collection. And a specification can be associated with multiple collections, but we have 4 collections here. So I'm going to talk about, so this particular collection is the financial aid in our fictitious world. The financial aid department put together all of their core reports into a collection. They only have 2 right now, so that staff in the financial aid office can quickly see what financial aid, of all the financial aid reports, these are the core ones. So let's group them. It's helpful to group those into a collection. Core probably meaning core operational. And there's 2 specifications currently there. So I'm going to enter this keyword zebra in a description field of the collection financial aid core reports. Now, I personally find when I am experimenting with search, I like to use these kinds of words like zebra, or I have to turn my admin back on so I can edit that. Sometimes I use types of fruit, sometimes I use colors, but I find it helpful to just embed these very irrelevant words into specific places, because it makes it easy to check out how that indexing is working. I'm just going to put the word zebra. I'm pretty confident that the word zebra is not occurring anywhere else in my Data Cookbook, so it's a safe thing to experiment with search on. So there, I've got that in the purpose. I think I was actually supposed to put it in the description. Let me fix that. because I can't remember which one. It would be in my notes. It's right there on the slide, but let me put it in the description. What did my notes say? It did say put it in description, so let's stay on script. So there's the word zebra in my script. Excuse me. There's the word zebra in my description of my collection, financial aid core reports. Now I'm going to navigate to browse specifications. And in browse spec, I'm on specifications. I'm going to keyword search for zebra. And I'm going to get those two specs that are linked to the collection that has the word zebra in the description. Okay, so it's the cookbook is kind of thinking for you, maybe a little bit of artificial intelligence, and it's making that indexing connection for you and pulling that word from a collection description. The word zebra does not appear in either of these two specifications. Okay, so that kind of reciprocity among objects is in play and can help explain why you're getting certain results. Let's go back at my next tricky item. Second point, I mentioned this already, you have to be approved to search here. Let's take a look at the difference between GPA in approved things. I've got two definitions, no specs, no data systems. But if I go to browse, actually if I just click on refine search, go over to navigate over to definition browse, I now have 9. So when I click on that refine search, it takes me to browse, it populates my browse search for me, executes the search. Now I have 9, most of which are not approved, not even one version. Okay, so just a reminder there that unapproved, approved is in those home tab searches. A reminder number 3, there is no search for information requests and quality issues if you have the enterprise account. The Control F, just your normal browser, Control F, let's go to information requests. That's right, they get wiped out because it's a demo account. So there is no, if there is a request, as I said, there is no search for it, and but you can use your usual Control F up here, and if you keyword search, it will index what's on the page, and information requests display in a single scrolled page. So it's a little bit of a workaround way to get some search capacity to those requests. My requests are wiped out every night because of the demo account. Number 4, for those of you who are using the API to publish definitions or other object content elsewhere, what I say here about search is not applicable to those APIs. That would be a whole nother session. So just a heads up that these search indexes are not necessarily applicable to the APIs. 5th point, technical metadata, because the technical definition is indexed, is searchable. So let's go to, I'm just going to copy that. Oh, it's not going to let me copy it. Let me move over here and just manually type it in. GL So that is my technical definition that occurs in actual amount, and there it found it and pulled it up. So for the technical folks on the call, you are familiar enough and talk about a needle in a haystack, right? The definition searches will work for that. So here is actual amount. Here is there is the keyword search that I used to retrieve it. I'll take a minute, I'll pause for a minute and parse this back to interpret what's going on here. So back on this doc, I'm searching definitions, and the technical definitions are indexed at the version level, which is why that technical metadata is appearing. And it is version sensitive. So to really take this into the weeds here, if I version this and remove that technical definition, and approve it, I'm just going to go straight to approve there. I have an expedited workflow. So I should be at version 2. Oh, and it's going to, okay. Now I'm at version 2 approved, and I have no technical definition. So my point here is now if I were to search on that same phrase, GL, roll up, actual, it brings me to this definition. But now I look at it and I'm like, why was, there can be confusion. Why is this here? Well, scroll down here, and it is part of a previous version. And there it is. So your version history is included. Same thing. So this is all approved, right? So same thing. Let's go over to the home. Clicking on that same GL roll up. Retrieves my definition. And same thing, it takes me to version 2. So let's look at, so 5 and 6 were related to each other. Let's look at tags are searchable. This is pretty straightforward. I just listed it because tags are so powerful, and they tend to be a polarizing feature. Tags are available for both definitions and specs. They share the same tag set, so they are listed here. So they are searchable. So if I keyword search KPI, I can retrieve, I think I just have one. Yep. And they're searchable up here, KPI. And of course, if this was approved, actually it is. So if I keyword searched at the home, I would also retrieve that one definition. So there's just a lot of findability feature set around those tags. And I contrast that with what we call additional attributes. In the cookbook, they're called additional attributes. They're actually more commonly, I think, could be called custom fields. So if there's a custom field maybe around for a privacy flag, et cetera, those are not searchable at all. Let me see what additional attributes. You can set additional attributes for each of your objects. Looks like for data systems, I have an attribute on backup code. There's a drop-down list of values, so those are not searchable. So it's nice to have the flexibility of creating custom fields, but the downside is they don't help you much in discovery. They don't have much discovery power, I guess is how I would describe it. Okay, let's take a look at number 9 here. For enterprise clients, you have the ability to document your valid value list. We call that a reference data list. So let's take a look here. We have a couple popular ones: the academic divisions of a school, list of academic programs, admit types, list of athletic teams, gender values for listed there. Let's look at meal plans. So there's, I think, about 7 types of meal plan you can have. One of them is gold. Some of them have colors. Freedom, Quad 19, Gold, Commuter, Summer Commuter, Gold Express. So those are pretty typical names for meal plans. So hold that thought about gold. And if I, from the Browse Reference Data page, if I search on gold, I do not get anything. Because for this reference browse search for reference data sets, those values are not indexed. However, if I have linked that list to a definition of meal plan, and I have, let's go up here and search on gold, and that will pull up the definition for meal plan. So your valid value, the codes themselves of the valid value list are searchable through the search options available to definitions if you have linked to that reference data list to a definition. We call that a quality attribute. So in kind of short version, here's my definition of meal plan. I've taken the time to connect that same reference data list. You see my descriptions there. So from the definition perspective, it's findable, but from the pure kind of what we call standalone reference data list, it is not findable. So that's an interesting complexity, tricky thing. From the definitions, let's go back to definition browse. So just kind of repeat, anywhere you can search for definitions, those valid value codes are indexed. So from here, I can get, oh, I must have some filters on. It's clear. All right, let's try it from here. No, all right. Oh, no, there it is. I just didn't scroll down far enough. Okay, my bad. It was there. So that's interesting. Meal plan is also approved. And so I will go over to the Home tab and also search on gold and have that definition of meal plan retrieved. So there you go. So it's unexpected, I think, of access, indexing access to those reference data codes. Another interesting and detailed part related to reference data lists. Do you see how this is called the under quality attributes? Each one embedded in a definition has a type. We don't list the types there, but valid value is one of the types. Those are indexed. Those are searchable in the same places that all definitions are. So if I come up here and search valid value, so I get like 6 or 7. These are all my definitions that happen to have, at this point in time, have a quality attribute, meaning a reference data list connected to it. Meal plan, marital status, admit type, academic program. One of the other, I'll use one more quality attribute, is length, which is kind of a little esoteric. So you can specify through a quality attribute the length of data within a field, and that is in use one time. So for a course number, has a specific specified length. And in that definition, there is a quality, oh, sorry, it's not, I didn't follow this one through. I went a little bit off script. This one must have the word length in it in another, for another purpose. But those names of those valid values types, excuse me, those names of those quality attribute types are searchable through this quick look definition lookup, as well as from definition browse. And then the last, I think that was all I had left of tricky stuff. I think just to say, I think I've shown you through other examples, these other 2 points. There's just a lot of indexing for definitions. I think in general, and you can kind of surmise that from, I'm back to the user guide here to Appendix A. There's just a lot of power there in those definitions. You can see that that's really we put a lot of effort into that because that's a foundational content component of Data Cookbook. So, the other objects don't have nearly that kind of search power behind them. Just a quick point out to kind of, again, to just kind of help you understand this chart a little better. So definitions down here, related quality rules, quality attribute codes, that's the magic that is making that gold code show up. So it's a quality attribute reference data code. If you navigate down here to actual reference data, there's no mention of the code here. So that's why when we searched gold at the reference data browse page, it didn't show up. We didn't get the list. Okay. Let's go back. I think the rest is just wrap up. As for those of you who attend these workshops often, I usually just have a summary card at the end, just kind of summarize at a high level what we went over today. Print out and check out that Appendix A. That explains a lot. It's a nice little cheat sheet of what's happening with indexing. Second point, we were pretty deep in the weeds today with search. You do not. I don't recommend you go that deeply with your average Data Cookbook user. I think there's some of what we talked about today is more general, and you do want to explain the 4 types. I think emphasize that you have to be approved to appear in the home and the find data. A couple other points maybe I might make, but I would not go into that vivid detail with your average Data Cookbook user. I'm assuming you each have a core group of staff who are extremely knowledgeable about Data Cookbook, and you would want to know this level of detail, but don't go to that level in your average documentation. Third, I can't say it often enough, you have to be approved to appear in the home and find data. That's probably one of our #1 support questions, is how come I don't get the same number? And then last, #4 is because of the relatedness, et cetera, and the versioning of objects, it may not be obvious why something was retrieved, in this case a definition or any object, but just keep digging for it. And of course, if you still can't find why it was not, you didn't get the results you thought in search, obviously just submit a support ticket and we can take you even further into it. I do think it's important that you trust the search in Data Cookbook. So I think we do want to get to the bottom of why something does or does not appear in search results. That it's an integrity issue, it's a trust issue, and we do want to be able to speak to it.